Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Lexicon Architect coming at you with a different kind of video for tonight. Tonight, we're going to be doing a historic deck tech for Magic Arena. Today we're going to be doing Simic Merfolk. This is by far one of my best decks on Arena for the historic format. I tend to do typically well with this deck whenever I play with it. It has a solid 60 to like 65 win percent with this deck because it just goes in so aggro and so hard that it's hard for our opponents to deal with it. I have been noticing lately that a lot of players are now playing Orcish Bowmaster, which causes some difficulty for us, but it's not the hugest problem, but it is kind of annoying to see your opponent flashing this Orcish Bowmaster to deal damage to something and also create Orc out of it. But other than that, the deck is fine. We have some ways to deal with certain decks, especially what we have in our sideboard for certain matchups. So let's get into the deck. We're going to be looking at our creature package. So we are running 4 Kumana Speaker. It is a 1 green, 1 mana creature that gets +1/+1 as long as you control another Merfolk or an island. So this is a very solid 1-drop for us as it allows us to get in for at least 2 damage or 3 the following turn, depending on what we draw. We might draw into one of our lords and make it a 3/3, which is cool because dealing 3 damage and 1 attack is very beneficial to us. So, our other 1-drop is Shoreline Scout. It's a 1 mana 1/1 that when it ETBs, you may exile a Merfolk card or land card from your hand. And if you do, you conjure a card named Tropical Island into your hand. And as long as you control another Merfolk or an island, if it entered the battlefield this turn, uh, Shoreline Scout gets +1/+0. So most of the time, what I do with this card, if I do have it as my turn 1 play, sometimes you can keep hands that only have 1 mana in it because we can turn our other Merfolk into a tropical island. So this does help us in case we want to keep a hand that only has 1 land in it. And then usually I target like Breeding Pool or Atawara or Boseiju to make a tropical island. Master of the Pearl Trident is a 2 blue, 2/2 creature that gives our other Merfolk +1/+1, and they have Island Walk. So sometimes you will win games with this card based on if your opponent is playing a Triome or some type of land that counts as an island, because then it's going to allow our other creatures to be able to swing in freely and deal damage that they cannot block. If you have 2 of these on board at the same time, they're going to see each other. They're both going to give each other Island Walk, and then they'll be able to attack into our opponent freely, especially if they control, well, obviously if they control an island. Then for another lord, we have a 2 mana 2/2 that gives our other Merfolk +1/+1. We are also playing Merfolk Trickster. I was playing a different card in this deck, and then I realized that this is better because as you can flash it in, sometimes you might put a stop during your opponent's upkeep to flash this in to tap down a creature. And then if we do flash this in, that creature will lose all abilities until the end of the turn. So this does work well with Meryl Rajiri. It's a 3 mana 2/2 that gives our other Merfolk +1/+1. And then the big payoff for this card is that it says whenever you play a Merfolk spell, you may tap or untap target permanent. So we can use this card, um, drop it on turn 3 if we can, or if we do Coco into it and we get double Marrow, it's going to be annoying for our opponent because we're going to be able to tap down their most important stuff, attack in, and most likely win the game because of Marrow. We are also playing Civil Gil Adept, a 2-mana 2/1 that says as an additional cost to cast it, you have to reveal a Merfolk from your hand or pay 3. And then when it ETBs, you draw a card. So this is great for us because it's going to allow us to see more cards. Most of the time, we almost always have a Merfolk in our hand. If we don't, then we have to wait until we have 5 mana to cast this to draw a card. Then we have 3 Sylvan of the Sea and Sky. So I love this card a lot because as long as you control two at least other Merfolk, this thing is going to have an indestructible. And then whenever it's going to give all our other Merfolk Ward 1. So if they're trying to remove one of your Merfolk with spot removal, they're going to have to pay an additional 1 to do so. And then finally, we're going to be playing Valdelian Hexcatcher. It's a 2-mana 1/1 with Flash that gives our other Merfolk +1/+1. And then we can sacrifice a Merfolk. If you do counter target non-creature spell, less than opponent pays 1. So most of the time we have to gauge the situation with this card, whether we play it on our turn or at the end of our opponent's turn. Sometimes playing it at the end of our opponent's turn is better because sometimes, it doesn't have to always be at the end step, but we can flash this in at any time. So let's say if they try to board wipe and they tap out, you flash this in. You could either sacrifice it or another Merfolk, and you can counter that spell. And if they did waste all their mana on a board wipe, they must have been doing it because they were afraid that they were going to die the next turn. So this card can get us out of tricky situations. And I just think it's an amazing card. And then why not? We're playing for Collected Company because it allows us to look at the top 6 card of our library, and then we can put up to 2 creature cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from one of them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom in any order. So sometimes we might want to do this at our opponent's end step, just to see if they have a counter spell for it. If they don't, cool, we get 2 Merfolk if it's in the top 6. Or we can play it on our turn just to give an additional buff to our creatures if we are able to grab 2 Lords from our deck. And finally is the land base. So we have 4 Bark Channel Pathway, 1 Boseiju, 4 Botanical Sanctum, 4 Breeding Pool, 1 Dream Root Cascade, 2 Islands, 1 Atawara, and 4 Secluded Courtyard. And then for our sideboard, we're going to be playing 2 Aether Gust. So we can choose a target spell or permanent that's red or green. Its opponent can choose whether to put it on the top or bottom of their library. We're playing 2 Mystical Dispute. We play this card in case we're up against another deck that is running blue. That way, this card will cost 2 less to cast if they cast a blue spell, and then we pay 1, and they would have to pay 3 mana unless the spell is countered. We're playing 3 Savage Swipes, so it gives a target creature we control +2/+2 to the end of turn if its power is 2, and then it fights target creature you don't control. Then we're playing 3 Shaper's Sanctuary. Whenever a creature you control becomes a target spell or ability, you may draw a card. Then we're playing 3 Spell Pierce to counter non-target creature spell unless its controller pays 2. And then finally we are playing Unlicensed Hearse, which allows us to exile up to 2 cards from a single graveyard, and then its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards exiled with it, and then we can crew it for 2. So that is the deck. We curve out at 2. Till turn 2, things start getting funky, and 79% of our permanents are blue and 31% are green. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be doing more historic deck techs along with my Budget Commander series. Please subscribe to me on YouTube if you do like this style of content. I hope you have a great day and take care.